All right. Hello, everyone. It is a sunny and wonderful day here in Regina, and I hope wherever you're joining from that it is also that way. Welcome to our final session in the 2025 Enough Already virtual conference. My name is Tal Marsley. I'm the Communications and Community Outreach Specialist at Sexual Assault Services of Saskatchewan, and I will be your MC today. In this four-part webinar series, we've covered topics such as responding to and preventing workplace sexual violence as a leader, the harms of non-disclosure agreements, and the roles of our regulators in Saskatchewan. Thank you for being here today for the SHIFT project, improving access to justice for individuals experiencing workplace sexual harassment. I'm going to introduce our presenter shortly, but before I would like to just open our time with a land acknowledgement. Sexual Assault Services of Saskatchewan acknowledges and honors the enduring presence of the people who have cared for this land since time immemorial, the Nehiyawak, the Nakawiniwak, the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, Denisiline, and the Métis Michif Nation. We reaffirm our commitment to serving all Saskatchewan treaty territories, including Treaties 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. We recognize that the spirit and intent of the treaties have not been fully honored, and that our communities suffer from the legacy of colonization, including dispossession, discrimination, and systemic violence. Thus, as treaty people, we are committed to decolonizing our work, our practice, and our relationships as we confront the injustices that continue to impact people's lives today. We are dedicated to moving beyond acknowledgement by building relationships and working in partnership with Indigenous peoples in the spirits of truth, reconciliation, humility, respect, and reciprocity. I'm just going to introduce the Enough Already program. So the Enough Already program is offered by Sexual Assault Services of Saskatchewan. It seeks to prevent and address sexual harassment in Saskatchewan workplaces. We're committed to working with governments, businesses, unions, industry associations, and community organizations across Saskatchewan to help make workplaces safe for everyone. Sexual Assault Services of Saskatchewan is a provincial nonprofit organization that works collectively with frontline agencies, community partners, and governments that provide support and advocacy for those affected by sexual violence in the province. We support our 13-member agencies and our partners across the province through research, education, policy development, and advocacy. This virtual conference is part of our Sexual Violence Prevention Month offerings. You can learn more about Sexual Violence Prevention Month on the Sexual Assault Services of Saskatchewan website, which I'll have a link to in the chat in just a moment. We're able to opt for this conference at no cost to the participants thanks to our generous funders. The Law Foundation of Saskatchewan is our Enough Already program funder, and SIGA, Service Hospitality, Sleek Signs, the Saskatchewan Union of Nurses, and SGI Canada are our Sexual Violence Prevention Month sponsors. Thank you for your generosity. We couldn't have done this conference without all of you. Today's topic might bring up difficult emotions, memories, and thoughts, and I encourage you to take the space that you need to take care of yourself. Please take breaks as you need it. And if you're looking for support, I'm going to include in the chat a list of links to support resources throughout Saskatchewan and Canada. Without further ado, I will introduce our presenter and Plea. So, you'll have to pardon me, my notes closed here. Sherry is with Plea, which is the Public Legal Education Association, who provides information, Plea is a nonprofit, non-government organization that exists to educate, inform, and empower through law-related education. Sherry, you can take it away now.
Thanks so much, Tal. All right. I'm gonna just bring up my presentation here. I promise I will introduce myself as soon as we've started here. All right. So thanks again, Tal, for having us and having me to talk today about the SHIFT project. And I'll say right up front, the SHIFT project is a legal referral service that provides up to 4 hours of free legal advice from a lawyer to anyone who has experienced workplace sexual harassment in Saskatchewan. So my name is Sherry Girock, and I'm one of the legal writers at Plea. And I'm joining you here from Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation in Saskatoon. A bit about me, I've practiced law for 20 years this month in a variety of roles. I've practiced both criminal and family law with legal aid in both Saskatchewan and the Northwest Territories. I spent some time as a litigator with the Civil Law Division of the Ministry of Justice here in Saskatchewan. And most recently, I spent about 9 years as a legislative drafter with the government of the Northwest Territories before moving back to Saskatoon to care for aging parents. I've been excited to be a legal writer with Plea now for the last year and a half, and I'm really happy to be here to talk to you today about our Shift project. So, a bit of an overview of the presentation today. I'll give you a little introduction to the program. We'll talk about what is a legal referral program. I'm going to cover and just explain a bit about why someone might want to see a lawyer who's experienced this and is in these circumstances. And then, of course, I'll review how the program works. I'll also show you our website so you have a clear idea of where to go and how to direct clients or people you're supporting to request a referral. I'll talk a little bit about some of the other services and materials Plea offers in this area. And then hopefully, well, I'm sure we'll have some time for questions at the end. So, as an introduction to the Shift project, the project is funded by the Legal Aid Program of the Federal Department of Justice, and we're grateful for that funding that allows us to run this. That project coming out of that funding is national in scope with the aim of increasing access to legal information and advice services to individuals impacted by workplace sexual harassment in provinces and territories right across the country. So in Saskatchewan, again, this means we are able to connect users of the program with up to 4 hours of free legal advice from one of our rostered lawyers. Funding for the program here in Saskatchewan, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, it actually began back in 2020, and it included both a legal information and a legal advice component. So the legal referral service actually launched in October of 2020 and ran until March of 2024. And then about a year later, in February of 2025, this funding was renewed for a further 2 years. So again, you're probably somewhat familiar with the project, and we just wanted to say that in this second iteration of the project, Plea is really hoping for increased awareness and uptake of the program. We recognize that this is a complex and a really difficult area for clients, and we want to emphasize the fact that the program is available regardless of any intention to take any sort of legal action or to disclose any type of an incident to an employer. I think sometimes that's been unclear, and people assume if they're speaking to a lawyer, it means they're about to take some legal action, and that's not the case. That's not a barrier to this program. There are lots of reasons why people might want to speak to a lawyer in these circumstances, and we'll get to that later. So, a legal referral program, just to say that it is different from a legal aid clinic in the sense that Plea, as the coordinating agency, doesn't actually provide the legal advice, but instead coordinates referrals to practicing lawyers who the client can connect with. Plea does provide legal information, and we'll talk about that later, but our legal writers and information officers can't provide legal advice, and the information officers are not part of the roster themselves. So instead, our roster is made up of lawyers practicing in different regions of the province, all of whom have received training in a trauma-informed legal practice and, of course, are active members of the Law Society and therefore licensed to practice and regulated by the Law Society. We're actually doing some training in the late summer or the fall with our lawyers, and that's being provided by SAS, which is really exciting because it's going to target specifically this area of workplace sexual harassment. So we provide additional training to lawyers in the program on substantive areas of law, involved in workplace harassment files, and are hoping this time to provide some training as well on the legal coaching aspect of these files. I'll talk more about that later as well. And lastly, it's important to note that lawyers in the program provide summary advice to clients, but under the program cannot provide representation. So this means that the lawyer you speak with can't represent you in a negotiation or begin a court case for you, but can help to give you the tools and the advice to navigate those processes. This is generally the case with legal referral programs because they are generally time limited. In this case, it's up to 4 hours of advice and not intended to establish a sort of relationship of representation. The program, of course, wouldn't be possible without our lawyers. I don't think any of them are on today, but we're really grateful to those members of the bar who have agreed to help us with this. So this is maybe one of the important pieces I wanted to cover today, and that's just to offer a few reasons that your client or someone you're supporting in your work or yourself might wish to speak with a lawyer if you've experienced workplace sexual harassment and why we might recommend that they do so. So the first reason, of course, is to understand what the law says about what you've experienced. People are generally aware of the criminal code and the laws we have around sexual assault, but they may be less aware of the duties imposed on their employer to prevent and address harassment in all its forms. And they may not realize in certain circumstances, for example, that a workplace dismissal or a change of working conditions may be linked to harassment. A lawyer is able to hear their story and make those connections with the law. So again, it's not any kind of a waste of a referral or to speak with a lawyer if a person is uncertain, even if what they've experienced is sexual harassment under the law. And we really encourage anyone who thinks they may have experienced that to reach out. So, as I mentioned at the outset, again, a person doesn't need to take any action or even disclose harassment to an employer in order to benefit from speaking with a lawyer. And there's certainly no prerequisite that they intend to move forward in some way. And of course, all communication with the lawyer is confidential and privileged. So the second reason, um, sort of the second step, I suppose, but is to explore the legal options available to a person in this situation and to understand the pros and cons of those. Um, if a person has experienced harassment, they do have options for taking steps to address it under the law or to seek compensation. And a lawyer can walk through those options with the person and discuss some of those pros and cons, depending on the situation and what the person wants from a resolution. The third is this is just an example of sort of the legal coaching. You may want assistance in drafting a document or in making a complaint. It might be an initial email to your employer that you want help drafting, something like that. Um, while a lawyer under the program won't, issue a demand letter on firm letterhead or something like that on your behalf, because again, it's not representation, but they can coach you and assist you in drafting a formal complaint of some kind or stating your position and desired outcome. And sort of linked to the legal coaching again is you might have a client or somebody who needs to understand the process of mediation or negotiation. Some folks may be at the stage where they're getting ready for a meeting with their employer or a mediator is involved, or they're in the resolution process at the Human Rights Commission. And a lawyer can help them, within that time frame to prepare them for that and let them know what to expect. So lots of things to consider in terms of why somebody might want to reach out for legal assistance. So in terms of, and I'm not sure if I should be stopping. Tal, you can jump in if I should. I assume you're monitoring the chat, or if anybody wanted to jump in with a question, I'm happy to have that, but I'll keep on going
Yeah,
unless I
no,
hear.
no
Yeah.
questions in the chat yet, but I will be monitoring. So yes, just like what Sherry said, if you have a question, put it in the chat and I will make sure that she sees it.
Yeah, I'm great with interruptions, so don't worry about that. So moving on to how the program works. So the first point of contact at the program is Plea's office manager, Tanya Clark. I think she's on the call today, who she handles intakes and coordinates referrals. So you can make a referral request online, and I'll show you this just in a second here, by phone, by email, or text. You can reach out to the program, and Tanya can help the client complete the request process or can direct a person to other supports, including a legal information officer. And I'll talk more about that as well. But it's important to note that a client doesn't actually ever have to speak to anyone other than the lawyer. We make every effort to respect the fact that sharing an experience multiple times um, can certainly be re-traumatizing and may actually prohibit someone from reaching out. So instead, clients complete a really simplified intake form, which I'll show you here in just a minute. Um, so the next step is an eligibility assessment, and that's really just about whether you have a workplace harassment issue or something that could be a workplace harassment issue, and it occurred in the province of Saskatchewan. We're more than happy to connect people with other resources and similar clinics. As I mentioned, the project, the funding was national, across the country. So we're happy to look into and connect you with a program if you're dealing with an incident. Maybe you live here, but the incident occurred outside of Saskatchewan. Um, so the next stage, once you're eligible, is moving straight to, and this all happens pretty quickly. We provide the initial information to one of our rostered lawyers, and of course, we do our best to accommodate any specific requests about location, gender, that sort of thing. And that lawyer then needs to undertake a conflict check, needs to, yeah, do a conflict check. So that's why in the intake form, you'll see we do ask for the name of the perpetrator, we ask for the workplace, and that's so a lawyer can run a check to make sure they're not ending up in a conflict situation. If they have represented, for example, an employer on something before, something of that nature. And that's a requirement of their of the practice of law is to make sure that before they provide advice that they have done that. So that's the reason for that. Of course, if things are unknown, you are welcome to say that on the form. But that is why we ask for that sort of limited information there. So once a lawyer accepts the referral, completes the conflict check, and we ask them generally to get back to us within a couple of days on that, we then provide the lawyer's contact information to the client, and it's client directed at that point. Although, of course, we're happy to assist as necessary. As I said, we try to turn these around really quickly, and we're normally able to refer to a lawyer within a week, sometimes even sooner. So then when the client meets with the lawyer, they'll sign or acknowledge a service agreement and then can begin that consultation. And again, the 4 hours can be spread out however is most useful for the client. And Plea is here to help answer questions. If people have questions about how to prepare for that meeting or any questions about how to structure that time, we are more than happy to help with that. And again, I'll get to our legal information line in a second. So I'm going to take you to, I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to take you to our website. There we go. So the main website, and um, we're doing a broad. We've sort of had a soft launch of this iteration of the program, and many of you on the call may already have received an email from us. We'll also be doing a hard launch where we'll be sending out, some print materials, poster, pamphlets, things that you can hand out to people, business cards with all of our information and sending some PSAs and that type of promotion as well. Um, so the website is shift.plea.org. We're still tweaking the website a bit, but the important piece is the request a referral button. Um, And there's a couple of places where you can click on that right now. Again, we're just tweaking some of this. And I'll do that right now. So if you click on request a referral, um, then you're taken immediately to the intake form. So again, you don't have to speak to anyone. You can just go to the website, you click on this, and here's a little information about the program, and then we ask for your first and last name, the city or town that you live in, confirmation that the incident occurred in Saskatchewan. And then in terms of the incident, again, this is to help the lawyer do a conflict check to make sure that they haven't or don't represent the other party, their workplace, or their union. And that's the only reason that we use that information. And again, if you don't know the answer, you can certainly say unknown. We also ask for a safe way to contact you. So that could be email, phone, text, or even mail. We have done things by regular mail, and we do say email preferred because it makes it easy to send information that way. But we're happy to accommodate anything. Um, and it's important to know that when we request that safe way, if somebody says that phone is okay, then we're going to assume that we can contact you by phone and that we can also leave a message there. So that's something just to make sure people are aware of. And again, people can reach out to us and ask about that. We have the ability to provide some translation, so we ask about that, and then we have a couple terms of service, and that's it. And once a client clicks this submit button, that goes directly to our office manager or intake officer for the program, and she starts right away. So it's really simple. Um, if you know that you want to speak with a lawyer and you don't have any questions, then that's all you need to do. I'm not going to flip back to the presentation, but the next slide was just about some other resources we have. I mentioned that one of the original components of the project was legal information as well as advice. And so when that funding was in place, we were able to complete plain language information on all of the areas of law that are involved in workplace sexual harassment files. So those are listed across the top of our website, and that's available to the public, to you, to anyone. And again, it's plain language to the best of our abilities. So we cover obviously what is sexual harassment. We cover Here's where we talk about legislation and occupational health and safety regulations and the Employment Act. And under that, there's quite a number of subheadings. We talk about harassment prevention policies, how to make a complaint, and the role of occupational health and safety. So I'm not going to take you through all of that today, but just know that that's all there. We cover the union environment, human rights, workers' compensation, and psychological injury. We cover the potential for civil complaints and civil actions. And then we have a section on criminal complaints and charges as well. So that information is all there. We also have, if you call, and actually, I did forget to show you this. So a little further down under Connect with Us today, we go over, you can use our online form. You can click there. It'll take you to that form again. But you can also call, email, or text to get a referral. Again, Tanya can help clients with that if that assistance is required. They can also ask to speak with a legal information officer if they don't know if they want to speak with a lawyer or they have questions. Generally, our office manager will answer questions about the program for sure. So if it's a question about the program, but if it's a question on legal information, then she'll refer to one of our legal information officers. And so that's all available at this phone line. And this is the Saskatoon number, of course, and then it's toll free as well. People can also email us, and again, depending on what they need, what they're asking for, we will get back to them with the information, and they can also text us. Yeah, So that's the legal information phone line. Oh, the last thing I should mention is we do maintain on this site down at the bottom here a list of other community resources. Uh, Oh, look, enough already is at the top. So they're kind of grouped into general. We have some Indigenous focused, we have some government services, and we have some sexual assault services. So there's lots in here. We've tried to provide a description of what the organization does and how to reach out to them. If you happen to be browsing on this and you see something that we're missing, we would be really grateful if you'd let us know. And we can add it there. And of course, that's available to our lawyers as well, who can then direct to other resources as might be helpful. So I'm just going to quickly make sure I haven't missed anything. Um, yeah, so we're at the point where I'm really happy to take any questions about the program. Tanya is here as well, so if it's a more specific question that I can't answer, I'm sure she can. So thanks, everyone.
Also joining us is Patience Umera Waneza. She is the Director of Policy and Research at Sexual Assault Services of Saskatchewan, and she oversees the Enough Already program. So if you have a question about Enough Already, she can also answer that for you.
Thank you so much, Sherry. I do have a question for you. How does our SHIFT project compare to other national legal support programs, Canada-wide?
Oh, um, do you mean is the same program offered in different jurisdictions?
Hmm. Yes, would you know that?
I'm a bit familiar with the BC program. Now the BC program is more like a clinic program because it's run out of community legal assistance there. BC has a fairly robust, in addition to BC Legal Aid, they have a legal assistance program that covers quite a few areas of law. Um, we have that to an extent here as well, maybe just not as many. So that's the organization that runs that in BC, but they also maintain a roster of lawyers. Yes, my understanding is I believe the program operates the same way in Nova Scotia. It's run there by their Plea organization.
Hmm.
Everybody has a bit of a different bit of a different funding structure, I would say, and a different take on certain things, perhaps even in terms of um, yeah, just the structure of it. Yeah, sorry, I guess I don't know. I don't know the details on how it would compare, but the referral structure is fairly common, I think, and that sort of roster of trained lawyers.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you. And the reason I ask is sometimes, Saskatchewan, we sometimes kind of end up at the bottom of the list in terms of resources that are available. And it's just really, we're really happy that Plea exists and that the program through Shift exists because it makes sure that Saskatchewan workers have similar resources to workers across Canada. And I know that sharing it, I don't know if you guys hear what survivors say necessarily, but we do get some of the calls from workers that have gone through your program, and we've heard really, really good things about the treatment that they receive from the lawyers. We've heard a lot of just supportive responses that they've had. And I think what tends to happen for us, what we hear from workers is that by the time they they reach out to Plea, they've gone through so many different options oftentimes within their employment spaces, options that they have at their workplaces. And they are just at a crossroads where there's so many different moving pieces, and they need somebody who can sort of untangle some of the ropes for them and can give them sort of a way to even contextualize what's going through for them. Sometimes it's because they need validation from somebody from the legal community to say that what happened to them was a crime. And sometimes it is just being able to kind of map it out for themselves, right? And then in other cases, really having the legal information that allows them to decide how to proceed forward. And we're just really happy that this program exists. If anyone ever runs into somebody that is looking for that support, please send them over. It's a supportive program. It's a great program, and we've heard nothing but good things. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, Patience. Yeah, no, it's definitely the intention was to provide a similar level of service. Maybe that was more your question, and that certainly happens across the country. And that was sort of the aim of the funding program to provide that. And yeah, just on that point, like the uptake, I would say we were a little surprised at that it wasn't higher in previous years, and so we are really focused this time on trying to promote it and make people, comfortable. I mean, no pressure to talk to a lawyer, obviously, but comfortable
Mm,
with the idea that you can talk to a lawyer no matter where you're at. You could even split that time. If you haven't even reached out to your employer and you want to get an idea, you want 1 hour right now to talk about, I need to tell someone about this and sort through some of those options or just have an initial meeting, you could
yeah,
do that. Then you could go away. You could come back, schedule another appointment, and maybe then you're at the point where you need some of that more specific help. So,
hmm,
really wherever you're at. And again, even if, of course, if you decide that you're not comfortable disclosing this to anyone else, including your employer, you can still speak with a lawyer and just get that understanding of where the
hmm,
law sits and how you can sort through those. Because yes, particularly in workplaces, there are a lot of intersecting pieces, and
yeah,
I have no doubt that it's overwhelming and complex for people. And so we hope that it can be a bridge for that, no matter what happens after, but that can provide some level of support there. So thanks for that so much. And yeah, let us know, of course, if we can clarify anything. We're trying to be
absolutely.
as clear on that as possible this time and make sure people know that. So thanks,
Mhm.
Patience. Appreciate
For
it.
sure. The other thing we've heard across the last couple of weeks from other kind of agencies that respond to workers who've experienced harassment is that there is generally a low uptake as well in a lot of other kind of options. Like WCB has really low numbers that have reported Saskatchewan human rights. We're still waiting for the numbers on that, but also OH&S. And I think it really comes up in part is just the general understanding of Saskatchewan workers as to like their rights around this issue, that you have the right to ask for help, that these are all the different sort of options that you have available to you. So I think the concerted effort for everyone to showcase the different resources that they have will, kind of tie the pieces together and hopefully increase that awareness in general. So something to sort of just say to Plea, I don't think it's just you guys. It's happening across the board, but I think there's sort of a heightened understanding of the issue, a heightened understanding that it's a form of psychological injury in the workplace, a heightened understanding that there are options and that those should not necessarily mean retaliation, like shouldn't lead to retaliation in the workplace. So hopefully more folks will reach out. But I'm glad to know that at least workers can reach out even if they're not ready to take action yet in the workplace, because I think that's a misconception that potentially might have hindered some folks. The other question I have received sometimes, we have been getting calls at times from folks looking for legal support for situations that happened in workplaces that are federally regulated workplaces that maybe are based out of Saskatchewan, but they are living in another province. So in that kind of situation, is this an option that would be available to them if the company is based out of Saskatchewan, but they don't live in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, it just is about where it took place. So of course yes, we have federally regulated industries. You think of banks, airports, things like that. If somebody's in a federally regulated industry, they absolutely contact in Saskatchewan, they absolutely contact our program, and our lawyers are aware of those different. And actually, on our website as well, we do talk about that. So if you're in a federally regulated industry, you're not, you're going to be at the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal rather than the Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission. And the complaint process under the Canada Labor Code is going to look different than it is under occupational health and safety here. Those types of things, the legislation that sets out the requirement for harassment policies, those will be different, and our lawyers will be aware of that. And absolutely, our program covers everyone in Saskatchewan, no matter if you're in a provincially or a federally regulated industry. And most things are provincially regulated. I can't remember the percentage, but it's very high. But absolutely,
Mhm.
federally regulated employees definitely contact our program. Yeah. if they want to speak to a lawyer.
So, thank you. So that's it for questions from me. Is there anyone that has questions on our call today? Um, if you'd like, you're also welcome to send us emails and we can forward those to Sherry and anyone else at Plea. But thank you so much.
Thanks again, Tal and Patience, for the opportunity and the support from SAS in the project as well. We're really looking forward to the training too. So
Okay, thank you. I see Joel put a comment that Newfoundland also has a similar journey project run through their Public Legal Information Association of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah, maybe I'll just speak to that for a moment because people might get a little confused between the Listen project and the Shift project.
Mm,
So Plea used to facilitate both of those. And in this sort of gap that we had when we didn't have the funding for Shift, we were referring all of those people to Listen because Listen more broadly offers legal support to those who have experienced sexual violence and domestic violence as well. So there was coverage there. This allows for a bit more of a specific program targeting workplace sexual harassment. We don't run the Listen Project anymore. It is very ably run by the Elizabeth Fry Society now. And certainly, if we have somebody contact us who doesn't have a workplace issue, but needs assistance, we will refer to them, and I think vice versa. And of course, that Listen project is funded provincially on an ongoing basis. So again, when this project, unfortunately, at some point comes to an end, we'll still be able to, to hopefully fill some of those gaps. But and that's that the Journey project just made me think of it because oftentimes the programs have been run by the same organization. Same thing in Nova Scotia. They run both. BC's Community Legal Assistance runs two programs as well. So yeah, I should have clarified that maybe in case anyone's confused about that. And you can certainly contact either program. We'll direct you to the right place.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sherry, and thank you for your excellent presentation. And thank you, everyone who attended today. We appreciate your commitment to supporting worker wellness and to preventing sexual violence. That concludes our 2025 Enough Already virtual conference. I have put links in the chat to Plea as well as the Enough Already website. If you want to continue this conversation, please reach out using the contact us function on the Enough Already website. And there's nothing left to say, but I hope that you have a beautiful weekend. Take care, everybody.